200 passengers were flying through calm skies when everything changed in 1 second. The plane shook hard. Screams filled the cabin. Then a weak, hurting voice came over the speaker, the captain himself, asking if any combat pilots were on board. One woman's hand slowly rose. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Maya Reyes was sleeping in seat 8A when the plane started to shake. She had her jacket pulled over her shoulders like a small blanket. Her boots were pushed under the seat in front of her, next to a green army bag with her name written on the side in black marker. She was tired, the kind of tired that comes from many months of hard work far away from home. For the last 8 months, she had been flying fighter jets from a Navy ship in the Pacific Ocean. Now she was going home to Chicago, sitting in a normal airplane seat like any other passenger. The man next to her in 8B was reading a business magazine. He had asked her once, "Are you in the army or something?" Maya had just smiled a little and said, "Something like that," and then closed her eyes. She did not want to talk about her job. She just wanted to sleep for a few hours and forget about jets and ships and loud engine noise. The plane was a Boeing 777, flying at a high altitude over the mountains. The cabin lights were low. Most people had their window covers closed, and a few small reading lights glowed here and there like tiny stars. It was peaceful. Maya had almost forgotten what peaceful felt like. Then the plane dropped. It was not a small bump. It felt like the floor disappeared for 1 second. Cups fell. A bag came out of the overhead bin and hit a woman's shoulder. People screamed. Maya's body reacted before her mind did. Her hand grabbed the armrest hard, and her eyes opened fully awake in less than a second. Her heart was already beating fast, the way it used to beat during a night landing on the ship. The plane shook again, side to side this time, like a boat in rough water. The engines made a strange sound, a high whine, and then a low groan. Maya looked out the window. The wing was moving up and down more than normal. That was not good. Wings should stay steady. "What is happening?" the man in 8B said, his voice shaking. He was holding his magazine so hard it was bending in his hands. Maya did not answer. She was watching the cabin, not the window. She had learned that people often show what is wrong before anyone says it out loud. The flight attendants, who had been walking calmly a few minutes ago, were now moving fast toward the front of the plane. One of them almost fell down as the plane tilted again. The captain's voice usually comes on the speaker and says something simple. "Sorry for the shaking, please stay in your seats." But this time, there was only silence for a few seconds. Just the sound of the engines and the frightened whispers of 200 people. Then the speaker turned on with a loud click. It was a man's voice this time, and it was not calm at all. It was rough, tired, breathing hard between each word, like every sentence cost him effort. It was the captain himself. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain." He stopped, took a sharp breath, and continued. "We hit something bad up here. My first officer is hurt. I am not doing well myself. I need help." Another pause, longer this time, filled with static. "If there is any pilot on this flight, any pilot at all, especially combat pilots, please press your call button right now. Please, hurry." The whole cabin went quiet. Nobody moved. Maya felt her stomach drop, worse than the turbulence. She looked around. Nobody's light turned on. No hand went up. She thought about staying in her seat. She was tired. She was not trained to fly this kind of plane. A fighter jet and a passenger plane were as different as a bicycle and a truck. She told herself someone else would answer, some retired airline pilot sitting quietly in business class. She waited 5 seconds. 10 seconds. The plane shook hard again, and this time it turned slightly to one side, not smoothly, but roughly, like someone fighting with the controls and losing. Nobody else pressed their button. Maya took a deep breath and pressed hers. A small yellow light turned on above her seat. The man in 8B stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You're a pilot?" he asked. "Navy fighter pilot," she said quietly, already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Let me out, please." He moved his legs fast so she could get into the aisle. As she stood up, a flight attendant came running from the front, her uniform messy, her hands shaking. Her name tag said Anna. "You pressed the button?" Anna asked, almost breathless. "Yes." "What is going on?" "The pilots are hurt. Please, come fast." Maya followed her through the curtain into business class. People stared at her with wide, scared eyes as she walked past. Her heart was pounding, but her face stayed calm. She had learned a long time ago that when people are scared, they look at your face to know how scared they should be. So she kept her face still, even though inside she felt far from calm. At the front of the plane, near the cockpit door, an older man in a suit was standing with a phone in his hand. His face was pale, almost gray. He looked at Maya and did not seem impressed. She was wearing simple travel clothes, not a uniform. Her hair was messy from sleeping. "Are you really a pilot?" he asked. "Navy. Fighter jets. What happened to your crew?" He explained quickly. The turbulence hit without warning, hard and fast. Both pilots were in the cockpit at the time, but the shaking threw them around badly. The captain hit his head on a hard part of the cockpit. He had just enough strength to make that one announcement on the speaker, and moments after that, he lost consciousness and was now not moving, not answering. The co-pilot, a younger man, was still flying the plane, but his shoulder was hurt badly, and he was struggling to keep control with just one strong arm. "He's flying with one arm and going into shock," the man said. "We need help. Now." Maya nodded. Her training was taking over her fear now, pushing it to a quiet corner of her mind. "Open the door," she said. The flight attendant typed a code, and the heavy cockpit door opened. A loud beeping alarm filled the small space, along with flashing red lights on the control panels. The smell of sweat and fear was thick in the air. On the left side, the captain was leaning against his seatbelt, not moving, a small cut on his head. On the right side, the co-pilot was pale and sweating, holding the control wheel with his left hand only, his right arm hanging in a strange, painful way. "Sir," Maya said loudly over the alarm. "I'm a Navy pilot. I'm taking the other seat. Talk to me." The co-pilot, whose name tag said Ray, turned his head slowly. His eyes were unfocused, like he was fighting to stay awake. "The plane, it's hard to hold. I can't reach some controls with this arm." "I understand. Hold it steady for me for 10 more seconds. That's all I need." She quickly put on her seatbelt harness, pulling it tight across her chest. The tightness helped her feel steady. "Okay," she said to Ray. "I have the controls." "You have the controls," Ray repeated weakly, and then let go, holding his hurt arm close to his body, his breathing fast and shallow. Maya looked at the screens in front of her. The plane was flying at a slight angle, nose pointing up too much, one wing lower than the other. Air speed was dropping, a dangerous sign. She remembered a simple rule from her training that worked for any kind of flying: first fly the plane, then figure out where you're going, then talk to people on the radio. She gently pushed the wheel forward to lower the nose and gave a small amount of extra power to the engines. The plane felt slow to respond, much slower than her jet. It was like turning a large, heavy truck instead of a small, quick car. Little by little, she leveled the wings and steadied the nose. The wild shaking calmed into something more controlled. She found the radio switch. "Air traffic control, this is the flight. Both pilots are hurt. I am a Navy pilot. I have taken control of the aircraft. I need help landing this plane. I have never flown this type before. There was a short silence, then a calm male voice answered. Copy that. We are getting an experienced airline pilot on the radio to help guide you. Stay level, stay calm. Help is coming. A few minutes later, a new voice came on, older and steady, like someone who had spent his whole life dealing with problems in the sky. This is Captain Walsh, senior training pilot. I hear we have a Navy flyer holding the plane together up there. That's right, Maya answered. I know how to fly. I don't know this plane. Then let's learn fast. Look at the panel in front of you, right above the main screens. Do you see the autopilot button? Maya scanned the buttons quickly. It looked confusing, dozens of small switches and lights, nothing like her jet's simple layout. But she found it. Yes. I see it. Good. Make sure your wings are level first. They are level. Then press it now. She pressed the button. A green light appeared, and suddenly the heavy pull on the wheel disappeared. The plane locked onto a steady, straight path all by itself. Maya let out a long breath she did not know she was holding. Her arms were shaking from the effort of holding the heavy controls. Autopilot is on, she said. Excellent work. Now, how is your co-pilot? Maya looked at Ray. His skin had turned pale white, and sweat covered his forehead. His eyes were half closed. He's getting worse. He needs a doctor the second we land. Understood. We are bringing you down to the nearest big airport. It has a long runway and full emergency crews waiting. For the next 20 minutes, Captain Walsh guided Maya through each small step. Turn to this direction. Go down to this height. Slow the plane to this speed. Lower the wheels. Each instruction was simple, but Maya's mind was working extremely hard, remembering every word, checking every screen twice. Outside the window, thick gray clouds surrounded the plane completely. She could not see the ground at all, only endless gray fog and rain streaking across the glass. The weather is bad down there, Walsh said. Low clouds, some rain. You will not see the runway until you are very close to the ground. When you do see it, you must slow your fall gently just before touching down, or the landing will be too hard and dangerous. I understand, Maya said, even though her stomach twisted with worry. In her jet, she had a screen right in front of her eyes that showed the runway path clearly. This plane had no such thing for her to use. She would have to look down at the instruments and then quickly look up to find the runway with her own eyes. The plane continued descending through the clouds. The alarm sound that told her the wheels were down and locked gave her a small feeling of relief. 3 green lights, meaning the landing gear was ready. The plane shook slightly as the wind pushed against it, but the autopilot held it steady on the path down. Then a new light began to flash on the panel, orange and sharp, along with a soft chime that repeated again and again. Maya's chest tightened. She had no idea what it meant. In her jet, every warning light had a clear, simple meaning she had memorized years ago. Here, the screen showed words she did not fully understand, something about the right engine losing a small amount of power. Walsh, I have a new warning. Right engine. I don't know what it means. Read me the exact words on the screen, Walsh said, his voice still calm, though a little faster now. Maya read it out loud, her eyes locked on the small glowing letters. Okay, listen carefully, Walsh said. That is not an emergency. The engine is losing a small amount of power because of the cold, wet air. It happens sometimes in weather like this. Watch your other engine. As long as it stays steady, you are fine. Do not touch anything. Just keep flying the approach. Maya checked the second engine reading. It was steady, holding strong. She forced her breathing to slow down, the way she used to before a difficult landing on the ship. Panic would not help her now. Only her hands and her training could help her. Second engine is steady, she said. Good. Ignore the light. Focus on your speed and your path. You are doing exactly what you need to do. Behind her, she heard Ray shift weakly in his seat, his breathing growing shallower. She glanced at him for half a second, then forced her eyes back to the instruments. There was no time to think about anything except the numbers in front of her, height, speed, and the small glowing line that showed her the path down through the clouds. She held the plane steady, trusting the instruments completely, even as her body screamed that something felt wrong in the thick, gray nothingness outside the window. At a very low height, the clouds finally broke apart. Below her, Maya saw wet roads, small buildings, and finally, straight ahead, the long gray runway with bright lights along its sides, shining through the rain. "Runway in sight," she said into the radio. "Turn off the autopilot now. It's all you from here, Navy." She switched it off. Immediately, the wheel became heavy again in her hands, alive and fighting against the wind. A strong gust pushed the nose to one side, and Maya used her feet on the pedals to straighten it out, just like she had done 1,000 times landing on a moving ship deck, except this deck was not moving, and it was much, much bigger. The ground came up fast. The runway lights blurred past on both sides. Rain hit the windshield hard, and the wipers moved back and forth quickly, barely keeping up. "Almost there," Walsh said. "When you get close, pull back gently to slow your fall. Do not let it hit hard." The runway numbers grew large in front of her. Maya watched her speed carefully, then, at just the right moment, she pulled the wheel back slightly while pulling the engine power down. The plane seemed to float for a second, hanging in the air just above the ground, before the wheels touched down with a heavy but controlled bump. She pushed the nose down gently to get the front wheel on the ground too, then pulled the brakes and reverse power. The plane shook as it slowed down fast, pressing everyone forward against their seatbelts. Slower and slower, until finally, the huge aircraft came to a complete stop on the wet runway. Silence. For a moment, Maya could not move. Her hands were still gripping the wheel tightly, and they would not stop shaking. It was not fear anymore. It was just her body letting go of all the tension it had been holding for the last 30 minutes. "Nice landing, Navy," Walsh said quietly through the radio. "Very nice landing." "Thank you," Maya said, her voice barely more than a whisper. The cockpit door opened, and Anna rushed in with tears in her eyes. "You did it. You really did it." Behind her, Maya could hear the sound of 200 passengers crying, clapping, and cheering all at once. Paramedics rushed onto the plane within minutes. They carefully carried Ray out first, checking his arm and giving him something for the pain, then went to check on the captain, who was slowly starting to wake up in the back of the plane. Maya stood up from the captain's seat, her legs weak, and stepped out of the cockpit to let the medical team work. One of the paramedics, an older woman, looked at Maya's simple clothes and messy hair and then at the cockpit behind her, confused. "You flew this plane?" Maya gave a tired smile. "Someone had to." She walked back to her seat to get her bag. The man in 8B stood up as she passed, and this time, he did not ask if she was in the army. He just said, "Thank you," his voice full of respect. Maya nodded, picked up her green bag, and walked off the plane into the rain, finally ready to go home.